TOAR stands for Training, Orchestration, Automation, and Response, and is both a methodology and a platform for accelerating the experience development in cybersecurity. If you think about that, the traditional journey to develop experience for everyone is going through competence building, maybe a certification assessment, and then on the job experience. What TOAR does is accelerating the experience development process, allowing through orchestration, automation, intelligence, cyber threat intelligence driven simulation to gain experience much faster. And instead of taking years, to allow an individual to go through several experiences in a much shorter time and in a self-driven sort of time, so we can develop that experience in our own time, but as fast or as slow as we like.
The concept of cyber resilience is really the next generation of thinking on where we started cybersecurity nearly 4 decades ago. And for the business and mission functions, how can you continue to operate under stress, even when it's in a degraded state of operations? And CISOs and their organizations need to anticipate attack and take proactive measures that align to threats and not be reactionary. I mean, they need to prepare. And when a breach does happen, and it will happen, resiliency means being able to withstand that attack and continue to operate core essential functions. And CyberRes is all about helping reduce that attack surface, especially at the application layer, being able to detect quickly the attacks and be able to respond, to be able to help protect that data, and also be able to handle that new perimeter, which is the identity. And in the context of TOAR and how that helps support cyber resilience, I think it's part of that evolution, helping build that human firewall, helping understand the threat intelligence and the threat landscape today more effectively. Jim, anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, no, thanks, Dan. Yes, there's an old football coach saying, you practice how you play, or you play how you practice. And so there's a couple of pieces that I think are really important here is, most cyber teams should or may see very few active and aggressive threats in their environment. And so, being able to create a simulated environment where they can practice and rehearse and orchestrate and iterate and approve, I think is essential to building that muscle memory. And then as far as threat orchestration automation, it's really about leveraging the scarce resource pool that's out there today, and to be able to to anticipate threats and then to build orchestration, automation, and response simulation against that just improves that kind of that learning curve from a threat response perspective. So people are more trained and better prepared in and with if an event happens, and that is one of those most essential elements in building a cyber resilient program.
Okay, so orchestration, you can think of a conductor. So a conductor, a music conductor, orchestrates all the different players, all the different musicians in the orchestra. So when you are when you are presenting a simulation environment for someone to experience real life attacks and to be put under pressure to understand if they are able to detect breaches, respond, and work in a team or collaborate, really what you are really saying is that we need to be able to orchestrate a number of components. So we need to orchestrate the simulation environment, so the infrastructure that you're simulating with the servers, the workstation, the applications, the email being exchanged, the user simulation, so user accessing emails, browsing websites. You need to simulate the attacks that are coming in, multiple attacks from different sources, different IP addresses. And you need to simulate then the type of attacks, the breaches, the lateral movement, the phishing. And then you need to also orchestrate the interaction between the participants. So maybe a new participant comes into the simulation and starts interacting with you. So you can imagine that if you don't have orchestration, really the ability to simulate such environment becomes very, very difficult, almost impossible. And orchestration really comes from the cloud technology world, where it takes care of basically orchestrating the different virtual resources, the simulation environment. But in the context of TOAR, orchestration is a much wider concept because it extends the orchestration to from the simulation environment to all the various components that will allow you to experience a realistic, lifelike environment. Now, combine orchestration with automation, and you have automated orchestration, which basically means one-click simulation. You press one button, and all of a sudden you create this wonderful matrix, which you can now enter as a cybersecurity professional, as an operator, or a offensive sort of professional, and all of a sudden you are experiencing a cybersecurity world, which is exactly like the world that you have in real life. So really, the automated orchestration within TOAR allows to accelerate the training and the experience development, because now every time you need to put yourself through a simulation environment, you don't need to have an army of people to create that environment for you. You need to just, you can create it yourself. You just click the button and then you are within the matrix. And that's really what accelerates the experience, the learning curve and the experience over time.
Yeah, I'll take that one. I think the sad reality is the average security organization in a company has between 5 and 42 different tools. And 78% of the time, that means that their security operations teams have multiple consoles. And that becomes a weight, a burden that most CISOs have. And so part of what they're looking for, obviously, is consolidation of tools and all of those types of things. But that's potentially 42 different tools that you have in your environment that you have to simulate. And I think to Al's point, that's almost virtually impossible in a non-TOAR type environment. And so, to simulate a cyber threat attack with 5 to 40 different tools, it's going to be largely just an academic exercise that's run on a piece of paper. And to Al's point, to be able to simulate that virtual environment and then to introduce active threats that have to be identified, detected, and responded to, and allow your teams to rehearse that over and over and over again is really one of the core cornerstones of building a cyber resilient team. It accelerates the learning curve for your threat hunters. And what it does, in my opinion, is every one of those tools creates what I call a security at the seams. It's where those two technologies overlap. And a TOAR environment would help incident response teams, I think, better rehearse, identify, and be able to respond so that you don't have those gaps, those security at the seam events. And Stan, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add.
No, I just think, again, having these multiple use cases available in a gamified environment also is very handy, right? Because it'll keep your team sharp, and you'll be able to, as you pointed out before, practice makes perfect in the context of the typical SOC. That's just real world experience. And you can, push the accelerator on that real world experience by having them go through these simulated gamification exercises in a safe environment. You don't have to depend on real world events hitting you. Let's get a ransomware attack this month, and hopefully you'll now understand how to deal with a ransomware attack. Yeah. So I think that's what, again, CISOs need to have an experienced team. They can get there faster with this kind of a capability.
And I'd like to add, again, as a new tactic comes out, as a new attack tactic comes out, again, to be able to anticipate that, to load it into a simulated environment, and then have your teams respond to it. So you've got a level of confidence that your team could respond if and when that cyber event happens.
Exactly. And what I wanted to add is that one of the biggest limitations and problems of CISOs today is the fact that every time they want to do a cyber resilience assessment, or every time they want to test the capabilities of their team, is actually quite a complex, expensive exercise, because without the orchestration, the automation, you require on human intervention, human setup. And so there are a lot of moving parts, which overall become effectively professional services. And as we know, they cost a lot of money. So what TOAR does, it allows you to integrate the different technologies, integrate the attacks, and with the one-click functionality allows you to more frequently run cyber resilience assessment and cyber exercise, and to test response capabilities. You don't have to sort of plan ahead months, because if you look at what organizations do today, they do it once a year, maximum twice a year. But when you start now introducing automation orchestration with cyber threat intelligence, with seamless integration with tools and technologies, like MicroFocus, for example, then that creates now that that gives CISO the ability to run these exercises, these assessments more frequently, and to have several touch points to understand, okay, is there a positive trend, or are we improving, are we stagnant, or are we actually going backwards? Because stuff changes, organization, this is called the year of the great resignation, as as we all know. So stuff is changing in organization, and CISO wants to know, has anything changed? Have we lost, have we dropped points in cyber resilience or not? And this allows you to quickly get a response and an answer to that.
And Al, if I could add one last thing, as a former CISO, I inevitably would get a call about a current threat that the CEO or the board of directors has seen come out on the internet, and the call would typically go, Jim, is your team prepared? And again, to be able to have a TOAR type environment, already have rehearsed it once or twice, I think puts CISOs in the position to really build confidence with their CEO or their board, so that when inevitably that email or that call comes, you can say, oh, not only am I aware of it, I've rehearsed it 2 or 3 times, and I think we're in pretty good shape. So